Again, and again, over and over. Same questions, same answers, same talking points, same grief, same agony, same anger, same disbelief, same finger pointing, same gun, same shooter, same victims, same 3 to 4 day news cycle, and then we move on until the next one.
God bless us, everyone. We were broken people living under loaded gun. And it can't be outfought, it can't be outdone, it can't be outmatched, it can't be outrun. No. God bless us, everyone. We were broken people living under loaded gun. And it can't be outfought, it can't be outdone, it can't be outmatched, it can't be outrun. No.
Welcome to the Comparison Group Podcast. Today is November 2nd, 2023. Don't worry, this is not going to be a gun show. I already did a couple of those. And, after the shooting in Maine, I said maybe I should post a particular episode entitled A Tiny Ripple of Hope Against Hate, which I did after the mass shooting at the supermarket in Buffalo, New York, if you remember. Well, guess what? Without me even posting that episode or talking about it, I had a bunch of listens to that episode. Every week you get if you're a podcast, you get your stats, and it just tells you how many listens, how many downloads you had, and you can look at particular episodes. And unbelievably, that particular episode actually had a bunch of listens last week. So thank you for that. That meant a lot to me. I mean, I was shocked by that because that meant that some people out there who listen to this podcast remember that episode from however long ago that was, that shooting in Buffalo, and went back and either listened to it again or shared it because they felt it needed to be heard. I talked a lot about the gun violence and why it happens and what we could do about it. So, again, thank you. Thank you for that. It really did. It surprised me. It touched me that people actually went and listened to an episode I did that long ago without me even bringing it up. Thank you. So that being said, if you want to hear my thoughts on these shootings, you can go back and listen to that episode and the episode right after it, which was, what was it? The Faces of Anguish, Anger, and Hope, I think was the title. Faces of Anguish, Anger, and Hope, because I did that episode right after the shooting in Uvalde. If you remember, we had the shooting in Buffalo. Right after that, we had the shooting in Uvalde. And so those two episodes are episodes you can go listen to if you want to hear my thoughts on shootings. If you go listen to that Faces of Anguish episode, have a box of tissues handy because it's a tough one to get through. But briefly on Lewiston, Maine, listen, we have to now consider having designated watchers. The same way when you go out with friends or family to have fun, you might have a designated driver to make sure everyone gets home safely. We have to have designated watchers. Someone in the group who can't be part of the fun has to watch the door, has to stay alert, has to stay vigilant for any trouble, but don't make it obvious. Don't act like a security guard. You'll probably be the first one to get shot. And make sure other watchers who may be there, designated watchers, make sure you don't shoot them. I mean, this is crazy. This is crazy, but this is what we have to now consider. Someone in the group has to stay vigilant if you go out now. And yeah, someone in the group probably should be armed if you go out now. We also have to consider when you're planning some sort of outing or event, you got to plan it around mass shooting rush hour. And I'm not trying to be funny here in the least. It's like we got to start planning, you know what, if I'm going to go to the grocery store, let me go super early in the morning. Mass shootings generally don't happen at that time of day. If I'm going to go to the shopping mall or a restaurant or to the movie theater or to a bowling alley, let me go on this particular day or this particular time because mass shootings are less likely at that time. I mean, it's like I said in the beginning, it's the same. If you stop and think about it, this stuff is just repetitive and it's the same. It's the same shooter. It's like it's the same profile, the same innocent victims, just people out looking to have a good time. Young, old, black, white, Hispanic, doesn't matter. It's like it's the same victims, just innocent people living their lives, trying to have fun. It's the same 3 to 4 day news cycle with all the same things said over and over again. And so we got to start adjusting our lives around what just seems to just keep repeating itself over and over again. As sad as that is to say, I'll talk more about this later in what I want to be the main topic. Is this reasonable? Is it unreasonable? Which you might feel like what I said was just unreasonable, but that's not even part of what I want to get to here. But I'm going to get back to that in something I'm going to play for you later. But let's start the main discussion. This is what I want to do. I'm going to play some clips for you, okay? And I want you to rate what you hear as reasonable or unreasonable on a scale of 1 to 10. 1 being totally reasonable, 10 being totally unreasonable. All right? Then I'm going to run my mouth for a while. I'm going to give you my thoughts on what I just played, what you just heard. And I'm going to ask you to rate again after listening to what I say. Now, I have no idea who listens to this show. My dream, as I always say, is it's a diverse, smart group of people. People on the left, people on the right, conservatives, liberals, progressives, Trump supporters. I don't care, whoever. As long as they're people who are looking for information and who are smart. That's all I ask. And I think you can find that throughout any group of people. That's my belief. So I want you to listen. I want you to rate what you hear as reasonable or unreasonable. And I'm looking to see if your opinion changes on the scale. And I won't know unless you tell me on Twitter or Instagram or wherever you can contact me, Spotify, if that works. I won't know, but you'll know. You'll know if your opinion changes. Maybe it'll surprise you. Maybe it won't. Maybe you'll be in agreement with me from the very start. Maybe you'll be in total disagreement, and then your opinion will change. This is about being honest with ourselves. So I won't know. You'll know. And maybe it will cause you to say, that surprised me a little bit. I didn't expect that. And you'll share it with someone else, have them listen, have them tell you their thoughts, and it'll elicit some discussion, which is exactly what we desperately need in this country. All right, so let's get started. First clip, let's get him out of the way. Your favorite and mine, Morning Joe Scarborough. I know I've been harping on this guy for the past few episodes, but I'm sorry. I listened to him. I don't know what I'm going to hear this maniac say. I don't know when I tune in and listen to him, he's going to say something that's going to set my hair on fire. So here's the clip. It's from Morning Joe. Listen to it, rate it, reasonable, unreasonable, scale of 1 to 10. Here we go.
Let's get to politics here at home. In his first major move since becoming Speaker of the House, Mike Johnson is taking the bipartisan goodwill of providing aid for Israel and launching a fight with President Biden over his signature achievement. House Republicans released the details of their aid package for Israel yesterday. It includes $14.3 billion in emergency funding, but here's the catch. The bill rescinds that same amount of IRS funding from the Inflation Reduction Act.
Remarkable how tone deaf my former party is. They are actually putting billionaires between the protection of Israel and the United States Congress. They are slashing funding for the IRS to go after billionaire tax cheats. Why don't we just have a billionaire tax? Like all the parts of the Trump tax cuts that were giveaways to billionaires and multinational corporations. Why don't we take that money from the multinational corporations that got massive windfalls and did all of those stock buybacks and take all of the billions that billionaires got from the Trump tax cuts? Why don't we take that money and help the Israelis instead of having the Republicans in the House try to help billionaire tax cheats? It's breathtaking, Michael. It's breathtaking. Yeah, I mean, it's fascinating, Rev. We got this Mike Johnson guy who was part of a Congress that spent more money and drove us deeper into debt over a 4-year period than any Congress in the history of the United States of America. In fact, Mike Johnson and Donald Trump together ran up debt more in 4 years than America did in its first 210 years of existence. And now suddenly he won't even help Jews protect themselves. It is so gross. And making it even grosser, he says, this is what we're going to do. We'll protect the Jews if you protect the billionaires. We want billionaire tax cheats to get away with stealing more money from the American people. So we'll let you protect the Jews, Joe Biden. But you have to let us protect our donors, our billionaire donors that are tax cheats. I've never truly heard of a dumber plan to start a speakership than to put Jews' life in danger so you could protect billionaire tax cheats.
I've never heard a dumber cable news host. Never. In my life, I've never heard a dumber cable news host. This is from a few days ago. This is from October 31st from his show. So a few days ago. When I heard it initially, I lost my mind. Just listening to it again for the sake of this show, it's making me even crazier. I don't think there's an argument that pisses me off more than the "I know you are, but what am I" argument in politics. And it seems to be the go-to argument when it comes to spending. I know you are, but what am I? This is the argument by educated people. These people went to school. These people got elected to public office. These people are on our TVs. And that's their argument. The most common argument when it comes to spending. If you hire someone to run your company, that's what an election is. Let's look at it that way. An election is hiring someone new, out with the old, in with the new. And you interview the person and you say, I'm not happy with the way this company's going. The guy I got running it now is embezzling money. He's wasting money. He's not treating my employees right. I want to get rid of him and bring in someone new. And then you bring in someone new and nothing changes. The new person does exactly the same thing. And when you go to them and say, what the heck is going on? They say, well, you weren't worried about it when the last guy was doing it. You weren't worried about the last guy embezzling. You weren't worried about the last guy treating your employees badly. That's the answer. That's the answer to deficit spending. Well, you weren't worried about the last group of people who were spending too much money. So why are you worried now? Because you were hired to fix it. You were hired to not do the same thing. Don't make your answer when I say, why the heck are you still spending too much money? Don't make the answer, how come you didn't ask it when the last person was doing it? That is not an answer. Because guess what? If that's going to be your answer, I'm doing it too, because you didn't complain when the last guy was doing it, then I'm going to call you all the same, which people hate. Drives people crazy. Whenever you say Democrats and Republicans, all the same. If you don't want to be called the same, don't act the same. If you don't want to be blamed for doing the same thing, don't do the same thing. Because if you do, I'll just say, I might as well go and hire that guy back that was doing the same thing you're doing. At least the price of gas was cheaper. Democrats wonder why they struggle. They wonder why they struggle against this Republican Party. Because it's like they go out of their way to act exactly the same. The best answer they can come up with on fiscal responsibility is, I know you are, but what am I? You got to stay with me here. If you are doing your rating right now and you're saying, that sounds totally reasonable to me, stay with me here. I promise you, you're going to change your mind after I say what I got to say. I don't know. Well, actually, I do. Joe Scarborough is dumb. There's no doubt about that. But I don't know if he's dumb on purpose or dumb by accident. I don't know which one it is. I truly don't. There's no way you can tell me that Joe Scarborough believes in his heart of hearts the answer to our problems is billionaire tax cheats. There's no way you can tell me he believes that. There's no way you can tell me that he does not know the reason Donald Trump and his administration had so much debt. There's no way you can tell me he doesn't know that's because of the COVID spending, which a lot of people agreed with. Not just Republicans, not just Donald Trump, but a lot of people agreed with giving Americans stimulus checks, with giving businesses money to stay afloat. A lot of people agreed with that trillions of dollars of spending, not just Donald Trump and not just Republicans. That is not a defense of Donald Trump or Republicans or Mike Johnson, the new Speaker of the House. That's a defense of honesty and consistency. There is no way you could tell me Joe Scarborough does not know Barack Obama ran up more debt in his 8 years. He was in office 8 years. Donald Trump was in office for 4. There's no way he can tell me he doesn't know Barack Obama ran up more debt than Donald Trump did. There's no way you can tell me he doesn't know that. I had to come on this show and debunk the misleading statement that Barack Obama ran up more debt than the first 40 whatever presidents combined. That was a talking point used on the right all throughout Barack Obama's second term in office. That Barack Obama ran up more debt than all the presidents before him. I had to come on this show and debunk that because I said, that sounds crazy. Is that true? So I went and fact checked it, and it turns out, kind of, sort of. But what you have to include in there is the context that America didn't even know what $1 billion was until like 1950. The first 30-something presidents had no debt. So it's completely a misleading statement, and Joe Scarborough uses the same misleading statement in reference to Donald Trump. The same misleading statement. Donald Trump ran up more debt than the first 200 and some odd years of this country's existence. He uses the same misleading statement to make this argument against Republicans and Mike Johnson, I guess. That's his goal here. That's his goal. It's just about politics. It's not about the truth. It's not about consistency. It's not about being reasonable. It's just about politics, I guess. You know what I just realized? This whole episode is going to be this one question. I wanted to do 3 or 4, but I just realized, just in this moment, this entire episode is going to be this one question. Is this reasonable or unreasonable? What Morning Joe is saying. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to do 2 more episodes. This is going to be a 3-part series. I'm going to try and bang them out quick for you, so you don't have to wait for them. I'm going to do a 3-part series because the next reasonable, unreasonable question has to do with a clip I'm going to play for you from a conservative show in reference to guns and mass shootings. And then the one after that, which I was going to play, unreasonable or reasonable, has to do with labor and unions and some information, some things about Trump supporters. I'll just put it that way. Okay? So look for those episodes next. I'm not going to fit it all into here. It'll be way too long because, like I said, I'm just realizing this guy, he's driving me crazy. But let me explain to you why. I am interested in results. I keep telling you that. I'm interested in results. I'm not interested in who wins and who loses when it comes to Democrat or Republican. I'm interested in America winning. The stated goal of going after this tax enforcement is to pay for things in the Inflation Reduction Act. That's the stated goal. One of the things is like $370 billion for climate change initiatives. That's the goal. That's what they told us. One of the ways we're going to pay for these climate change initiatives, is by going after people or doing tax enforcement. That's my interest. Is that going to work? Are we going to get the result that we want? Are we going to raise the money through tax enforcement to pay for these climate change initiatives that I'm in favor of? I got no problem with it. Stated it many times. Don't even know why we're arguing whether or not we need it. We need it. It's the future. Let's do it. I got no problem with spending $370 billion on climate change initiatives. I got no problem with spending $1 trillion on climate change initiatives. I just wouldn't call them climate change initiatives. I call them future energy projects. That's what I call them. I only got a problem with the name. I'd call them future energy projects. Batteries, solar, wind, whatever. All of it. So my interest is, will it work? Well, let's take a look at the numbers to decide if it's going to work or not, if it's reasonable or unreasonable. I got to calm down. People ask me, why do you listen to Morning Joe if he upsets you so much? I mean, that's the whole point. That's the whole point of this podcast. I keep telling you, you can't just listen to people you agree with. You got to listen to people you disagree with. I just don't know he's going to be so stupid every time I listen to him. So anyway, here's the numbers. There are 735 billionaires living in America at last count. All right? 735 billionaires. There's 22 million millionaires, if you're wondering. All right? Morning Joe didn't even include the millionaires. He was focused on the billionaire, quote unquote, tax cheats. So there are 735 of them. The IRS processed just under 165 million tax returns in 2022. So according to Morning Joe and others who agree with Biden's enforcement focus, the money is with the 735 billionaires, not with the 165 million filers. Well, I respectfully disagree with that. You know who else disagrees with Joe Biden, even though they don't even seem to know they disagree? The IRS. The IRS disagrees with that. This is from CBS News, a Money Watch online article from October 13th, 2023, so just a few weeks ago. It says Americans fail to pay $688 billion in taxes on their 2021 returns, a record level according to the IRS. The agency said it is taking urgent steps to increase compliance, such as auditing high-income taxpayers as well as businesses and partnerships. The IRS said it won't increase audits on households earning less than $400,000 annually. The article then goes on to say the three main reasons for the tax gap, that's the difference between what is owed and what is paid to the IRS on time. The three main reasons for the tax gap: non-filing. People just don't file on time for various reasons. That accounted for $77 billion in 2021, according to IRS. Next, underreporting. People don't report all of their income. That happens a lot when people are paid in cash, for instance, according to the IRS. This accounted for $542 billion in 2021. Again, according to the IRS. The third reason is underpayment. Taxes are reported, but people don't do their taxes correctly and underpay. Could be they did it on purpose, could be they did it on accident. Whatever, that accounted for $68 billion in underpayment, in shortfall, according to the IRS. So let's add it up. $77 billion for non-filing, $542 billion for underreporting, $68 billion for underpayment. Yup, I'm no math wizard, but that's $687 billion. So right under, as the IRS said, the $688 billion tax gap from 2022, based on the filings, from 2021, the shortfall from 2021 filings. So the most obvious question: do billionaires and even millionaires, even though Country Joe didn't include millionaires in his rant, do they not file returns? Sure, maybe. I'm sure some do. I'm sure some, don't file returns. But if they do, it won't be long before they get a knock at the door. Do they underreport? No question. Sure. Billionaires and millionaires underreport? Sure. Do they underpay? I have no doubt. Probably. They are. Sure, billionaires may underpay taxes. But all of those things, those three things, it doesn't happen as much as it seems some people want us to believe. And you know why? Because they're far more likely to get caught. They're far more likely to be audited. particularly if you're a billionaire. Particularly. You're far more likely to be audited. You're far more under a microscope with the IRS. And so doing those things, if you're a billionaire, it just doesn't make a whole lot of sense. In addition to that, high-income earners don't really necessarily do their own taxes. Billionaires are not sitting down at the kitchen table on April 14th going, all right, let me bang out these taxes. No, they have accountants, more likely accounting firms, who specialize in doing taxes for high-income earners. And I got news for you. Whether you want to believe it or not, accounting firms do not want to help their clients cheat on their taxes. It's just not in their best interest. It just doesn't make any sense. There are plenty of stories to be found out there of this guy who did this, this billionaire who hid money here, this billionaire who was collecting welfare. You can find all of these one-off stories, or you could say, oh, what about the Panama Papers, billionaires hiding money offshores? Absolutely. I'm not here to defend Mike Johnson, Republicans, Donald Trump. I'm here to defend what makes sense and what gets results. If you add up all of those stories, will you raise the money you need to do what you're saying you want to do? That's my focus. Ranting and raving about how much Trump spent during his administration, ranting and raving about how hypocritical Republicans are, ranting and raving about billionaire tax cheats, that's great for politics. I'm interested in results. And it seems clear to me, according to the IRS themselves, the best result is going to be to go after the 165 million tax filers who are much more likely to be underpaying, not filing, or underreporting. It's just as simple as that. It's just as simple as that. Are you going to find the money in 735 billionaires, or are you going to find the money in 25 million hairstylists who are paid in cash tips, who probably underreport, and 30 million waitresses, and 50 million Uber drivers? Hey, look, my numbers might not add up, but you get my point. Where are you most likely to get the money that you need to do what you want to do? All of those people out there doing gig jobs, all those people out there doing jobs where they're paid cash, or businesses that take cash, pizza places, those newsstands. What you can think of a million different ways that people underpay their taxes. So the question is, why would you sit there and rant and rave about billionaire tax cheats as if that's where all the money is? Why is it so hard for us in this country to open up our minds a little bit and say, well, yeah, if there's a billionaire not paying what they should pay in taxes, let's go after them. If there's a waitress not paying, or a waiter not paying what he or she is supposed to pay, let's make sure they do, because we need the money. Everybody's got to chip in here. Well, you know why that's hard? Because politically, that does not work. That does not work. Immediately, someone is going to say, are you crazy? Are you seriously going to put a billionaire against a struggling single mother waitress trying to make ends meet? Yup, I sure am. That's why I ain't in politics. You do what you want. I'm looking for results. I'm not looking to win an election. I'm looking for results. You do what you want. You keep on going into debt if you want, because you want to put that person against that person, even though you know that's where the money is, because the IRS is telling you that's where the $688 billion is. They're telling you that's where it is. So then I'm going to go get the money if I want to pay for the future energy projects we need in this country. Rate me on a scale of 1 to 10. Am I being unreasonable about that? Am I being unreasonable? What was your rating in the beginning to what Scarborough said? Has it changed? Does this make any sense to you? Rate me. Is that reasonable or unreasonable to expect everyone who owes taxes whether they owe $1 billion or whether they owe $1, to pay the taxes that they owe, and the IRS to go after the people to pay the taxes that they owe. Not at a cap of 400,000, not at a cap of $1 billion. Everyone who owes the taxes should pay the taxes that they owe. Why? Because we currently have a $1.7 trillion deficit. $1.7 trillion deficit. We are closing in on a $34 trillion debt. Now, let's make sure we understand what I'm saying here. The deficit, that's how much we have spent, not how much we're going to spend, not how much. This is, I've told you about the website, usaspending.gov. You can go to usaspending.gov. They track it by the day. We have spent this year, 2023, 1.7, just under 1.7 trillion more than we have taken in revenue. By the end of the fiscal year, I would imagine that deficit is probably going to hit somewhere in the neighborhood of $2 trillion for the year in the amount of money we spent versus what we took in. Back when Obama was in office, if Obama had an annual deficit of $500 billion, we thought the world was going to come to an end. We're going to end up with $2 trillion in deficit spending. Joe Scarborough, you are dumb, but you cannot expect me to believe you think we're going to solve a $2 trillion annual deficit by going after 735 billionaires. There's no way anybody in this country can tell me they think that's the answer. That's the solution. Particularly not Joe Biden. I honestly don't think Joe Biden's that stupid. I really don't. I don't think the people at the IRS are that stupid. I don't think Democrats in Congress are that stupid. Like I said, it's just political. It's just what works political. The billionaire class, they're the problem. They're the people to go after. That's how we pay for this stuff. The corporations, they're the problem. They're not paying enough in taxes. That's who we go after. That's how we pay for this stuff. Those Trump tax cuts, that's the problem. That's what we got to go after. Those Trump tax cuts, those big giveaways to all the rich friends, all the rich donors. Listen to me. Please listen to me. Oh, my goodness. Democrats, you are about to set yourself up to look as stupid as the Republicans when it came to Obamacare. For 8 years, Republicans tried to repeal Obamacare. I don't have to remind you, 50-something votes during one Congress to repeal Obamacare. It was their sole mission in life to repeal Obamacare. Then Obama's term as president ended, and Democrats ran on, if you put Republicans in charge, they're going to take away your Obamacare. And Republicans, without batting an eye, said, no, we're not. Where'd you hear that? Democrats are setting themselves up for the same stupidity. Republicans are going to run. If you give Joe Biden another term, if you let these Democrats stay in charge, they're going to take away your tax cuts, because those middle-class tax cuts are going to expire. And if they're in charge, they're going to take away your tax cuts. And Democrats are going to be forced to say, no, we're not. Where'd you hear that? I promise you, in an election year, there is nobody over there on that Democratic side, including Joe Biden, that wants to talk about raising taxes on anyone. On anyone. They'll be forced to say, what they say, corporations, they get away with this and they get away with that. But when it comes down to putting something down on paper, on actually repealing some of those tax cuts, some of those Trump tax cuts for even the wealthiest people, I promise you Democrats do not want to touch that with a 10-foot pole. And they're going to look just like Republicans did when Republicans said, oh, no, we're not going to take away your pre-existing condition protection. Oh, no, we're not going to repeal that thing where kids can stay on their parents' policy if they're in school until they're 25. Oh, no, we're not going to take away that whole lifetime cap thing. Oh, no, we're not going to one thing after another. Oh, no, we're not going to take away that. After spending 8 years saying we're going to take away all of that, all of a sudden, when it became politically a problem to say you were going to take away those things. Republicans turned on a dime and said, we're not going to take away those things. Democrats are going to have to face the same problem of spending all of this time talking about this Trump tax cut, this big giveaway, and then they're going to say, oh, no, we're not going to take away all of those tax cuts. Wake up. Wake up, people. There is a broader, smarter discussion to be had here. If you want to discuss whether or not aid to Israel or Ukraine should be tied to anything, discuss that. Discuss that. In that discussion, listen, not for nothing. Can somebody tell me why Hamas never runs out of rockets? Why does Hamas and Hezbollah never run out of stuff? It seems like Israel, they're like, oh, we got to give them money. We got to help them. They need billions of dollars. Israel is not a poor country. I'm asking this seriously. I'm not joking. How come the terrorists never seem to run out of ammo? I know Hamas, Hezbollah, they get help from Iran. I get that. And they do all sorts of illegal activities to raise money, to kidnap people and, I guess sell oil illegally. But again, my question, how come they never run out of ammunition? Where do they get it from? Aren't there sanctions on Iran? I mean, Iran's a poor country. Just like, the people that were generally fighting, they get money, but they're not wealthy, I don't think. So do sanctions work? We have to start asking that. Are sanctions really a deterrent? How come we can't stop Iran from selling oil on the black market? But if you do, we get right back into that humanitarian obstacle, because the sanctions really only hurt the innocent people, the citizens. It doesn't hurt the leadership in any country. So to me, this is a discussion to have. This is a broader discussion to have. Should we tie this aid to anything, to any offsets, or should it just be done separately, regardless of the administration in charge? When we have a situation like this, let's put a law in place that, look, this stuff cannot be tied to any other funding when it's in our national interest. And if Israel and Ukraine are in our national interest, it can't be held up over stupid arguments. That's a discussion. Are we being effective in what we're doing, not just militarily, but countering these groups' abilities to wage war? Are sanctions actually effective? And if not, why not? That's an interesting discussion to have. Is there a time to give up on a diplomatic solution to the problems in the Middle East? That's an interesting discussion to have. To me, should there ever be a time to say diplomatic solution not going to be found here? Or do we say, nope, never give up? Never give up on a diplomatic solution. Me, if you tell me our national security is at risk, our national security is at stake, I'm the type of guy who says, let our military do what our military does. If you're telling me our safety is at stake, that's your job as commander-in-chief, to protect the sovereignty of this country. So if our national security truly is at stake, we got the best military in the world, let them do what they do. That's my thought. Don't go by me, because I'll get us in all sorts of trouble. But that's just my thought. To me, that's an interesting discussion to have. Either you stay out of conflicts, or if you involve the country in the conflicts, then you better involve the country into the conflict all the way. That's a discussion. That's a discussion. I like to see what people think about that. What's not interesting, and what's stupid to me, and what's a waste of time, and what is, yes, unreasonable, is the same old political division that's so easy to do, because, yeah, who's going to defend billionaires? If somebody's screaming about that billionaire tax cheats, who's going to be crazy enough to defend billionaires? That don't get you an audience. That's not speaking to the masses. As I said, there's only 735 billionaires, and I know they're not all going to listen to this podcast. And so it's not the popular thing to say, but to me, it's the reasonable thing to say. You're not going to solve your problems by continuing to act like if you just go after the ultra wealthy and make them pay their fair share, we're going to be able to do something about this debt and this deficit and pay for the things that we need to be paying for. I'm not your enemy. I'm not your enemy. That's the problem. People in this country, what we've gotten to. If you disagree in any way, you must be the enemy. I'm not a billionaire. I know struggle. Don't think I don't know struggle. A couple of months ago, the heater on the pool at my house, it crapped out on me. So for the entire fall, because my repair guy couldn't get the parts to fix it, for the entire fall, once it got to be too cool, I couldn't use the outdoor pool. I was stuck using the indoor pool. The indoor pool doesn't have the infinity edge. So yeah, I know struggle. Now, obviously, I'm joking. That's a joke. Of course, the indoor pool has an infinity edge. Who would put a pool in without an infinity edge? Grow up. My point is, I know struggle. But you don't have to know struggle. You don't have to be a billionaire, a millionaire, a thousandaire, a hardworking single mother, a college student, a retired person to want our government to be effective. That's all I want. I want our government to be effective, to get results, to do what is smart, to do what works. That's all I want. That's the only argument any of us should be having. Is this going to be effective? Is the money we're going to spend in Israel or Ukraine going to be effective? Is the money we're going to spend expanding the IRS's enforcement going to be effective? Is the money that we then spend on climate change initiatives going to be effective? That's it. That's it. That's all that matters. Not only have we stopped having discussions in that way, we have stopped even knowing what the results are. After the argument is won or lost, and what's done is done, we don't even know if what we did or didn't do was effective. People say the Trump tax cuts blew a hole in the deficit. Did it? I don't know. It depends on who you ask. People say the Trump tax cuts were a stimulus to the economy. Was it? I don't know. It depends on who you asked. People say corporate revenue actually increased after the Trump tax cuts. Did it? I don't know. It depends on who you ask. You could look at the revenue and say, oh, look at that. In those years, the revenue did go up. But then you could go to somebody else and say, oh, well, no, you can't go by that because if you adjust it for inflation or if you look at this or that, if you look at what it would have been without those tax cuts, the revenue would have been higher. So then I don't know. We don't even know if the stuff that we're fighting about and arguing about and we don't even know. We don't even know if we're even winning the argument. Does that seem unreasonable to you? To be arguing so fiercely and then not even know if you were right or wrong? Does that seem unreasonable to you? I asked a question, but you don't have to tell me. You don't have to tell anyone. Tell yourself. Tell yourself. Be honest with yourself. This show's not about agreement. I say it over and over again. It's about, did this make you think? Did it make you go, wait a second here. Maybe I do have to give this more consideration. It's about you looking in the mirror and saying to yourself, am I part of the problem or am I part of the solution? Am I just listening to these people who were ranting and raving and telling me this stuff without any suggestion, without any solution, without any ideas, and I'm just swallowing it hook, line, and sinker because it's what I want to believe. It's what I want to hear. It's about looking in the mirror and saying, well, what can I do? What can I come up with? What idea do I have? Well, how about this? We all talk about, or I've heard a lot of people say, if I could say where I want my taxes to go, I'd pay more. I wouldn't have a problem with paying taxes. You've heard people say that. They should let us decide where we want our money to go because we give money to the government and they just waste it. That can't happen. It's not going to happen because 100% of the money would go to the military, which, I got no problem with that. They deserve it. But if we all decided where we want our tax dollars to go, we would all say, give it to the military, give it to our veterans. So that can't happen. But what could happen is we could have a voluntary payment in taxes. You could choose to pay a certain amount over and above what you owe. It could be for someone who's getting a tax refund. It could be for someone who owes taxes. Let's say you're getting a $3,000 tax refund. You could say, take $100 of my $3,000 tax refund, send me $2,900, take $100 and put it here. And they could have a list of 5 or 6 things where that money would go. And it could be places where the money is desperately needed, but is always underfunded. Updating our election infrastructure, for instance. We always hear about how outdated our election infrastructure is, which makes people think elections are being stolen. So that could be one place. You could send additional money to the Department of Education to help fund resources for teachers, to help teachers. We all love the teachers. We should. They're always under-resourced. So money to the Department of Education for them to specifically fund resources for teachers could be another place. Going after waste, fraud, and abuse and some of our social welfare systems. That could be a place to go. Doesn't matter who you are. Liberal, conservative, progressive, doesn't matter. No one should be okay with waste, fraud, or abuse in any program. And that's a program, those programs are a place where it goes on, but we always lack the resources to really go after it. And so you could say, I want my $100 to go there. And with 165 million people filing taxes, well, again, let's do the math. I'm no math wizard, but out of 165 million people, let's just say 50 million say, I'm going to give $100 extra out of my refund, or I'm going to add $100 to what I owe, and here's where I want it to go. How much money would that raise? Let's see. 50 million people, $100 a person, that would be $5 billion. $5 billion, they ain't going to pay for nothing. Let's do this again. Let's say people put their money where their mouths are in this country. All the people who are always screaming about the need for some of these programs and very interested in other people paying more, let's just crank those numbers up a bit. Let's say instead of 50 million people, we get 100 million taxpayers in on this idea. And it could be things like to go to homelessness, to help solve the homelessness issue in this country. It could be going after or putting money towards cyber protections. Again, that's something that's always underfunded in this country, cyber protections. It could go to helping to solve the problem at the border, which needs more funding and which, based on what's going on in New York and what Mayor Eric Adams has been saying, should say to people, you know what? Humanitarian need, yes, but if Eric Adams is telling us New York City's going to go bankrupt because of the migrants being sent there, it seems like, yeah, maybe we need to put some money towards that. So you expand where this money can go, this voluntary money can go, crank it up to 100 million people giving money, and crank it up to, let's say, each person gives an average $300. Some people give more, some people give less. But let's say we get an average of $300 per person. How much is that? Well, that's $30 billion. Okay. I mean, it pays for something, right? Extra $30 billion every year coming in to the federal government voluntarily. It's a suggestion. That's all it is. It's an idea. How about shows where people give suggestions and ideas? What I try and do every episode. And all you got to do to come up with these suggestions and ideas is stop listening to the people who just want to talk politics, look in the mirror, and say, I wonder if there's something I can do. And if you're reasonable, you'll realize every single time there's always something all of us can do. Thanks for listening. Man, I really didn't expect that episode to go that way. I have 2 or 3, maybe even 4 more reasonable or unreasonable topics to discuss. We'll get to them. Stay tuned. We'll get to them.
I'm gonna make a change for once in my life. It's gonna feel real good. Gonna make a difference. Gonna make it right.
I see no changes. Wake up in the morning and I ask myself, is life worth living? Should I blast myself? I'm tired of being poor and even worse, I'm black. My stomach hurts, so I'm looking for a purpose.
Thanks so much for listening. I really appreciate it. I really appreciate the support, the sharing. Please keep that going. As I said, I depend on you. I depend on you. I don't have any marketing, any advertising, any money for any of that stuff, so I depend on you, so I appreciate it so much.
Turn up the collarbone, my favorite winter coat. This wind is blowing my mind. I see the kids in the street with not enough to eat. Who am I to be blind, pretending not to see their needs? I saw us disregard a broken bottle.
You can share and listen on Spotify, on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Amazon Music. You know where. You know where to get the show. Don't act like you don't. You know where to share it. You know how to share it. And rate it. Come on.
Make the world a better place. Take a look at yourself and then make a change.
Thanks a lot. As I said, I got a couple more topics. The next one, maybe I'll do the guns. A guy talking about the guns. Maybe the one after that I will do has to do with labor and unions and how people interact with MAGA Republicans. We'll see. But keep an eye out. Next 2 episodes coming up quickly will be another reasonable, unreasonable question. All right? Thanks a lot. I'll see you next time.
And of all things ever sick, we ain't